All right, and we are back here on the GSMC football podcast. And for the third part of the show, we're going to now talk about the Ravens and their 28-14 victory over the Steelers. And yeah, this was not really much of a game from start to finish. Now, the Steelers, they got shut out in the first half. They finally, showed a little bit of a pulse in the second half, but it was just too little, too late. The Ravens were clearly the better team, and that showed once again. Now, this game was a little bit. I don't even know if I want to say that. This game was never really close. I mean, I guess when you look at the final score, it was closer than when they lost 34-17, but it's just not really saying much. The Steelers just at least in that game though, it was tied for a little bit. But here, it's just the Steelers came out with it just seemed like no energy. It's just their first drive of the game, they go 3 and out. Ravens go right down the field and score a touchdown. The Ravens just have better players. Right? So the Steelers got the ball, they punted right away. Ravens went 13 plays, 95 yards. Took up a lot of clock. Felt like they had the ball forever. Like the Steelers just barely had the ball in this game. The Steelers went 3 and out on their next possession. They actually got the Ravens to punt on their second drive, but then the Steelers punted again. Then it was 14-0. So Bateman scored the first touchdown. Derrick Henry scored the second touchdown, and he had a monster game. Almost 200 yards rushing in the game for him alone. But yeah, the Steelers, 4 straight punts to open the game. It was 21-0 at the half. Finally, you had, and this was right before the end of the first half. Lamar Jackson connected with Justice Hill for a 5-yard touchdown. Good to get him back. So yeah, it was 21-0 at the half, like I said. Ravens punted to open up the second half. And then the Steelers, 9 plays, 98 yards. They finally got something going. They were backed up in their own territory. They were at their own 3. Russell Wilson completes a pass to Calvin Austin for 25 yards, and then they were off and running. He had 37 yards to Mike Williams, and then later in the drive, Russell Wilson connected with Van Jefferson. There was some miscommunication on that play for the Ravens. And, Van Jefferson scored a touchdown. But actually, I also forgot to mention, in the first half, the Steelers, they had a chance to put up some points because George Pickens had a big play that got called back because there was offensive PI. It was a 49-yard reception by George Pickens. This would have put them at the Ravens 7, but it gets called back because of offensive PI. So it could have been 14-7 at the half, and maybe the Ravens still score some points before the end of the half. Who knows? But at least they would have been closer because I think the Steelers would have definitely gotten points on that drive. Whether it was a Boswell field goal because he never misses, or maybe they punch it in. Who knows? But that was a killer penalty in the first half. But yeah, so the Steelers made it 21-7, and you thought, okay, maybe they can get something going if they can get a stop here, get the ball back. No, because the Ravens go 4 plays, 70 yards. Derrick Henry, a 44-yard rushing touchdown, and that made it 28-7. But then the Steelers answered with a George Pickens 36-yard touchdown, so that made it 28-14. But then nobody scored after that. That was the final score. The Steelers, on their side of things, Russell Wilson went 20 of 29 for 270 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. The Steelers only ran the ball for 29 yards. That might have been Najee Harris's last game as a Steeler because they didn't pick up his 50-year option. And I think that's the right move because even though he finished over 1,000 yards, he just wasn't great. Had some good games this year, but I think the Steelers need to move off of him because he's not like when you see Derrick Henry and you see Saquon, they have these explosive runs. Najee Harris doesn't have that kind of burst for him. He's a bruiser. He gets those tough yardages, but he's just not a guy that has a lot of explosive runs. And I think the Steelers, they just lack explosiveness on this offense. And I think they need to move off of Najee Harris, which is what they're going to do. That's why they didn't pick up his 50-year option. George Pickens, 5 receptions for 87 yards and a touchdown. Van Jefferson had 2 for 37 and a touchdown. Najee Harris, 3 for 41. Mike Williams, 1 for 37. Calvin Austin, 1 for 25. Steelers defense, 1 sack. 1 sack of Lamar Jackson. on that play. And actually, I forget which drive that was, but that was a big play. And then it turned to like 2nd and 20, and then on the next play, the Ravens got all those yards back for a first down. So yeah, that was the kind of night they had. Anyways, with the Ravens now, Lamar Jackson, he went 16-21 for 175 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. Derrick Henry, 26 carries for 186 yards, 2 touchdowns. Lamar Jackson had 15 carries for 81 yards. The Ravens, as a team, ran the ball for 299 yards and the 2 rushing touchdowns by Derrick Henry. Steelers' run defense just had no answers for the Ravens and their rushing attack. And it was kind of like the first game, although this was worse. I mean, almost 300 yards rushing by the Ravens in this game. Isaiah Likely was their leading receiver, 3 receptions for 53 yards. Mark Andrews, 2 for 27. Nelson Aguilar, 1 for 25. Bateman, 2 for 24 and a touchdown. Tylan Wallace, he had 1 for 21. That was what I was talking about. The Ravens, Lamar got sacked, and then Tylan Wallace got that 21-yard reception. Ravens defense, 4 sacks of Russell Wilson, and Justin Tucker went 4 for 4 on extra points. And they move on, and they will be playing in the divisional round. But like I said, the Steelers just lack explosiveness in their offense. The Ravens, they got that with Lamar Jackson, with Derrick Henry. You got the tight end, Mark Andrews, of course. Isaiah Likely, also the other tight end. And this was without Zay Flowers. But it didn't matter because the Ravens' running game just gashed that Steelers defense. And they just came out with they really just came out like they were just going through the motions. There was no urgency until the second half when they finally got, something going here. But it didn't matter. It was too little too late, and it just, they traded Deontay Johnson right before the year started to get Dante Jackson, a corner, but they didn't replace him. They drafted Roman Wilson. He barely played this year, and even when he did, it was just a non-factor. You go out and you trade for Mike Williams. You barely used him. Now, he's still coming off of that, ACL injury, but you got him for a reason. You got to use him. 1 reception. Calvin Austin, he looks like he's a good player for them. He's made some big plays for them this year, both on special teams and as a receiver. 1 reception that led to their first touchdown to get them out of their own end zone. And, the Steeler fans are just all over, Mike Tomlin and just how, once again, they lost another playoff game. 1 and done. They want them to move off of Arthur Smith. They got to figure something out. Now, we'll talk about, from the Steelers' perspective more this week. I don't want to get into too much of it, but the Ravens were just a better team. That's really what it comes down to. The teams, but when it comes to the Ravens and even the Bengals, even though the Bengals didn't make it, those 2 teams have their quarterbacks. And those 2 teams have elite playmakers on that side of the ball. When you look at the Steelers' offense, who on that offense is an elite player? I wouldn't say George Pickens is an elite player. Is he an elite talent? Yes. But is he an elite player? I don't think so. And it seems like he's, causing headaches for the Steelers, with some of his antics down the stretch here. Steelers ended up losing 5 straight games to close out the year. They were 10-3. They were in first place in their division. And they went from the 3 seed to the 6 seed, and they're out. Just like that. So, they're going to keep Tomlin, but, what are they going to do with the quarterback situation as well? What are they going to do there? Are they going to run it back with Russ? Are they going to keep Justin Fields as well? What is their plan this offseason with those guys? Now, Russ, I don't think was bad for them. He had some nice moments for them this year, but he's not the same player. He's not. And he made some good throws the other night. He did. But the consistency is not there. And what made him so special in Seattle was to be able to create plays off script. He doesn't do that anymore. That's not his game anymore. And you take that away, he's not as of an effective quarterback as he once was. Now, I think he could still play 100%. But in this AFC, and even in your division, he's not good enough to win it for you. He's not. And, when you look at the defense is getting older. Cam Hayward's getting older. TJ Watt's getting older. They got to bring in some more talent on that side of the ball, too. But, yeah, they're just going in circles. But we'll talk about it more because, there's a Mike Tomlin topic that I wanted to, maybe get into because Steeler fans are just not happy. And how they are with Mike Tomlin is like how Yankee fans are with Aaron Boone. But here's the thing, at least for Mike Tomlin, he won a Super Bowl. Aaron Boone and the Yankees got to a World Series this year or last year, but they didn't win it. But that's kind of what I would relate it to. But we'll get into that this week. But Ravens, though, they look good. And we're going to be seeing the two MVP favorites going at it next week. And that'll conclude Divisional weekend. Ravens-Bills, which is going to be must-watch. Must-watch TV. I cannot wait for that game. And we'll get into the Bills and their win over the Broncos. That'll be tomorrow. But, yeah, let me know what you guys think, though, about this game. So the Ravens, they win the season series 2-1. And Steelers are once again one and done. So, yeah, we are going to take our next break. When we come back, we will talk about the Patriots hiring Mike Vrabel to be their next head coach, what that means for them going forward. So make sure to stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.